My name is Joshua Vonderheide, and I am the founder of the Percussion Conservatory. And I am very happy and very pleased to be welcoming Mr. Edward Choi back on our platform for a percussion story. Ed is the principal percussionist of the Seoul Philharmonic. He is a dear friend. We have played together in orchestras all over the world, but mostly on that side of the world back when I lived in Malaysia. And I participated in a big summer series of master classes that Ed has done in Korea. And he's just one of my idols of percussion. So, Ed, it is such an honor to have you on for a percussion story. And I just want to jump right into the first question, which is that I'd like to ask you to tell us a little bit about your early musical background and how those early experiences sort of impacted you with percussion and when you knew that you wanted to major in percussion or music.
First of all, I wanted to say thank you, Josh, for having me and that great intro. I'm a huge fan of you and what you've been doing with the platform, and I'm so honored to be a part of it. My early musical background, I started in piano when I was a little kid, but didn't last very long. Did some trumpet and trombone in middle school band, but I started percussion actually when I was in grade 7 as a snare drummer, or actually a drummer in drum corps, and I soon became a snare drummer a year after that. And I did that all through high school and in college. And then I actually studied English literature and music in college, and then later went to music school when I was 26. So I didn't know what I was going to major in percussion till much later in life.
That's such a unique, pathway, and we really don't hear that very often. Although there are some other notable ones like Jason Haheim in the Met, who has, a whole nano engineering or making really, really small models of incredible things like Homer Simpson. And so obviously there is this connection between people who are high achieving in music, but also have these interests in a lot of other things. We know that, for example, Mike Warner is like an incredible surfer, and we have, I'm full of coding experience now, and we see lots of people wanting to sort of be multidisciplinary. And I'm curious what had initially attracted to you to being an English major.
Well, I was thinking of trying to go to law school. And actually, my brother became a lawyer. He's older
Ah,
than me. He told me I really was more suited to be a musician. And I was already teaching a lot of drum corps in Asia, in Korea and Japan. And at the time, hadn't really thought about it, but I remember I was actually in Japan and I was teaching with the Blue Devils staff. They're a famous group out of California. They always win the drum corps championships. And one of the instructors, Jeff Lee, he mentioned to me that he went to music school without having much of a background in classical music. That's when the sort of the bell went off, and I realized that I could do it too. And of course, he told me you had to really find the right teachers and of course work really hard, practice 6 hours. I remember him saying 6 hours a day. And so I kind of took that and ran and went to the University of Toronto from there. um,
amazing. So speaking of, that's a great segue about percussion training. I'd love for you to take us through that percussion training, like your prominent teachers, your schools that you went to, the festivals that you did, just anything that you can think of that you felt like was really formative during your path.
well, first, even before music school, for me, because I was really into competitive drumline, I was very influenced by Alan Murray in Boston with the Boston Crusaders, and Tom Hannum from the at the time Star of Indiana. I played under him in at UMass Amherst and Star, and the pursuit of excellence was really something that I learned early on through rudimental training. So later, when I went to music school, I knew that I had to find the right teachers. So being from Toronto, I went to the University of Toronto, and I knew that Nexus were world famous, and that's why I went there. And later, during my undergrad, I went to the Lee Howard Stevens marimba seminar, and that was really seminal for me because there I met not only Stevens but Michael Burritt, who I went to study with for my master's at Northwestern, and then with Shi Wu at Rutgers for my doctorate. And I met them all or both of them at the Stevens seminar. And then while I was at Rutgers, Alan Abel the legendary orchestral percussion trainer, came on faculty. And that's what changed the direction of my life. Just meeting him and studying with him for 2 years. So, yeah, those were my prominent teachers. Orchestrally, also, I studied with James Ross at Northwestern of the Chicago Symphony and John Rudolph from the Toronto Symphony. In school, I actually, because I didn't really get into orchestral till later, I only went to the Aspen Music Festival in my undergrad, and I spent a lot of my other years going to different seminars or workshops. I went to the Duff workshop for timpani, of course, the Stevens seminar that I mentioned, the Bob Becker Xylo seminar, and I also taught a lot of drum corps at the time. So it wasn't until literally the last 2 years of my grad studies that I got into orchestral percussion and thought that, okay, I can really do this, and then ended up in Korea right after.
Wow. And so how old were you when you ended up winning the principal job in Korea was your first job?
Yes, I
Yeah.
entered as a section percussionist, and then later was I took the auditions to get the promotion to associate and then principal. So I auditioned several times for the same orchestra. But yeah, it was right out of school, and I thought I would be here for 1 year, and now I'm on year 20.
That's incredible. I think that that just shows, your personal resilience to this idea in society that we feel all the time. Especially, I felt when I was in school, like if you don't have it all figured out by 25, like you might as well just call it quits and wrap it up and send it home. There's this weird, overwhelming pressure these days. I think, especially with social media, where we do see like such an amplification of people just achieving all around you. And some people who achieve are just super young, and it's hard not to compare yourself. And can you imagine, you hadn't had that one conversation or that one risk taking moment where you say, you know what, I am going to be a percussionist, and look at where it's brought you. That one audition for a section job on the other side of the world, and now you're the principal percussionist of an orchestra that's led by Jaap van Sweden, and you've been at the helm of it for 20 years, and you guys are hosting a timpani audition that's coming up that's probably going to attract the best timpanists from around the entire world. And guys, get your tapes in for that, by the way. There's only a week left before that deadline. So I just think that that's so inspiring, Ed. And maybe you'd like to just speak a little bit about that aspect of your personality, and I don't know, a little bit about that experience, that first audition experience.
In a lot of ways, I was always a late bloomer in different aspects of my life, whether it was in sports, like I was a fencer later, and I finally had success when I was in college, and we won the championships, like my last tournament, and then I retired right there.
Okay.
But it took me a while to find things that find my footing, whether it was in sports. With percussion, I just learned through drum corps that hard work will eclipse talent, and I
Mm.
learned that early on. And I took that lesson with me. And in music school, I mean, it was tough. When I first was in an undergrad, I was so behind. But I realized that if I was the first person there and the last one at night, then I could sleep well that night. And then I felt like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And actually, if you have the right teachers and you just put in all the hours, I think it's really possible. Of course, even when if someone were to come to me right now at the age 26, like I was, and just say, okay, I want to go to music school, but I've never played the marimba or, trained classically, I
Right.
would definitely have reservations. But not knowing any better actually was my advantage. And things timing wise worked out where I just met the right people at the right time. And joining the orchestra at 35, thinking I just needed to take an audition as soon as I got out of school, and then thinking I'll be here for a year. But then we had Korea's most prominent conductor, Myung-un Jung, come and join our orchestra, and suddenly the budget tripled, and suddenly we were going on tours and recordings. So I try to tell my students to keep an open mind. There are auditions all over the world. You might not get into the big orchestra that you want right away or ever, but to keep in mind that anything can happen, and especially in Asia, things are growing exponentially here. That's really kind of been my message to students: is it is possible, but you just have to work hard. take as many chances as possible.
Love that. I really, really love that. And it leads me in an interesting sort of segue to the next question, because you mentioned being a late bloomer, and something, that I think you and I have talked about personally, so I feel like it's okay to say this. You didn't have your first kid when you were, 21 years old here, right? Like, you waited a little bit longer until you had your first child. And because you waited longer, you had been a professional for a little while, and you had a lot of experience under your belt. You had seen the world, you had lived in multiple countries, you'd had a lot of different experiences. And then all of a sudden, you have this amazing, beautiful baby girl come into your life. And I want to know, how has being a father or parent changed your relationship with music?
Yeah, I mean, it's the best. Originally, when I went into music, I told myself, look, I have to be committed to perhaps not having money, perhaps not even getting married, not being able to support a family. And I was literally ready to do that. And later, things stabilized, and I was able to get married and have a kid, which, of course, changed everything. And I realized that, oh man, I wish I had more kids, or I wish I had done this earlier. But I had to take care of the career first. There's a catch 22 there, because I don't know if I could have done a lot of the things that I did had I got married earlier and had a
Mm,
kid. But at the same time, it's the best, and I wish I could have more. So being a father, it's really helped me gain perspective with work. Things aren't as life changing for me now at work if there's a crisis of some sort, or there are issues, because nothing's more important than having a family and the kids. So that has helped me put things in perspective. And actually thinking about music, and my daughter, just trying to get her involved in music. Right now she's taking Suzuki violin,
mm.
piano. For me, I mean, I don't want to push her, but I really think a life in music is so rewarding, and I want her to have the opportunity if she chooses to go into it. My wife is a jazz pianist as well, and so music is so big in our lives, and it's brought us such joy. I'd love to see her also be involved if she chooses.
That's awesome. Well, I definitely know that in such a musical family as yours, I don't think there'll be any lack of exposure or opportunities for her to get her feet wet with all the different sorts of things that we can do in the arts. And ultimately, those things, with kids, it just, they are their own people, and we are the shepherds. That's all you can hope to do, is just shepherd them in the right direction. And they're often interested in very, very different things than you are interested in. I've noticed that in my nieces and my nephews. And I am, for those of you who don't know, I have got a baby boy coming next month, which is very exciting. So I thought this would be a nice moment for Ed and I just to talk about being dads. So, Ed, I'll have a lot of advice calls. I'll be calling you up for all the tips for all the things that I'm sure I will be experiencing very soon. But
Absolutely.
maybe it could have been this, but maybe I was thinking with this question just a little bit earlier on, but perhaps not. It's open ended. What would be the defining moment in your life that's had the most significant impact on your career?
I can think of a couple. Well, the first one is meeting Alan Abel.
Mm,
Yeah, literally until then, I was actually working towards a DMA, and I thought, of being. Thought I could be a professor of percussion somewhere in some small college in the middle of nowhere. And when I started studying with him and seeing the guys at Temple in the mock auditions, etc., I realized, oh, I think I can do this. It's a lot easier to play magic flute than it is to play velocities. Well, I in a way it is, but of course, there's so many challenges as an orchestral percussionist to win an audition. And the joy that playing in an orchestra, that music brings. I used to think as a undergrad, not being the main voice and just sitting in the back of the orchestra, that, maybe it wasn't a significant enough contribution. But now being surrounded by great music, playing Beethoven 9 recently, listening to Don Luzzi playing timpani with us, it's amazing. And just enjoying the music for me, and then contributing when my part comes up, that's satisfying enough for me. I know for some people in music, it's tough. They want to be the soloist, or they want to have much more of a bigger contribution. But I love being the team player. and taking the spotlight when it's time, and also, just being a supporter, being in a supporting role at other times. So meeting Mr. Abel, and he really gave us a systematic way of thinking about orchestral percussion and practicing and taking auditions. And another significant moment was when, as I mentioned, the Korean conductor Myung-Eun Jung came to our orchestra.
Hmm.
And because like I said, I thought I'd be here 1 year, and then he came, and he's incredible. He's mostly known in Europe as opposed to in America. He is such a incredible musician, and I learned so much about music from him, and that literally changed my life because I decided to not leave just because I wanted to play under him, and that was 10 years of great music making.
Wow. That's really, really cool. Yeah, I mean, I do feel like that was something I missed out on. During my time in Malaysia, we never had a full time MD. What were some of the ways that, besides just him being, the way great maestros are, they know the music so well, right? And they just, as you're saying, they transfer that energy of the music to you and their knowledge of the score, and they have incredible ears. But besides just those technical things, when you're saying like, he didn't just make me excited to like play music that season. It's like he wanted me to have that made me have my whole career like in Seoul Philharmonic. What were some of the things that you valued in him as a conductor that had that level of impact on you?
He is a real, like, true maestro in the sense of, he was a little, in a way, he was kind of distant because he was so busy. He was traveling all over the world. He was music director of the Radio France, conducting in La Scala a lot, which he still does, and in Tokyo, and then all over Europe. He's also, I think, still principal guest of Dresden. So just the level of musicianship that and the decades that he brought, everything he conducted was memorized. He knew the percussion. Every small thing that we did, he already knew. For example, if you missed a small triangle, he would call you out. And it was just astonishing to me how much music was coming out of him. And, basically he worked his butt off, and he's famous for just constantly just studying 5 in the morning, practice, studying scores and just traveling around the world. So that dedication to music, that made a huge impression on me. Also, the emotional sort of commitment that he got out of the musicians. He could just change the air in the room just by walking in. Everybody was super aware of him and what he wanted, and that he could bring tears to your eyes just the way he conducted pieces, which doesn't happen a lot. And that, to this day, I still think about it, and am influenced by him.
That's really cool. Well, it sounds like you guys connected about work ethic too, or even if it was not something you spoke about to each other, it was just sort of this understood thing that you're someone, Ed, who I have seen have just a relentless work ethic, not only in percussion, but also just your dedication to your family and to your students, to the percussion conservatory. I mean, it's everything you do, you want to make sure that you do it at the highest level because I think you just respect the other people you're working with so much. You wouldn't have it any other way. So I'm sure you felt some similar kindred spirit with him about that. And I do want to take a single minute here just to also thank Majestic Percussion for their dedication to the Percussion Conservatory and to percussion education at large. For those of you who aren't aware, Majestic is our principal sponsor at the Percussion Conservatory, and they also sponsor this endeavor that we're doing right now, a percussion story. And the reason that they sponsor it is because they want to help us share the stories of great percussionists around the world. They want us to help, shine a light on those people in the community who are doing incredible things, who we should be learning from. And also just that they want to, in helping students learn from these incredible people, they also want to provide opportunities. So this year for our scholarship, they had given 3 snare drums, 3 of the brand new Opus 1 snare drums, which were just an incredible prize. And they said if we did a bunch of these podcasts that maybe they would consider giving an even bigger prize. So guys, when you like this video, when you share this video, when you subscribe to Percussion Conservatory, let's get as many subscribers on here as we possibly can so that Majestic sees that you guys care about this platform and and that you guys want to support this platform, and Majestic will support us right back. And if you haven't already become a member of Percussion Conservatory, now is a great time to do so. You can check out all the information on our website, because we're going to have an even bigger scholarship this year. So if you were a finalist last year or you got an honorable mention, you should definitely be consider applying again, because it's going to be a really big prize this year. And that's all I'll say about that. To be continued. But back to our regularly scheduled programming here with Mr. Ed Choi. I would like to highlight something that I feel like maybe not secret in Korea. I think everyone knows this, but I think worldwide people are not aware of how many students you have placed in professional positions. The number is ridiculous. It's like, if you start cluing in to how many people worldwide have jobs and how many of them have passed through your teaching in one way or another, I think you're carrying on the tradition of Mr. Alan Abel very, very well, is all I can really say about that. So, I mean, we're talking orchestras worldwide, teaching positions worldwide. And so I would like to just ask you, how are you doing this, Ed? What's your philosophy of teaching? What are your secrets of teaching? Where do you teach? How can people study with you? We would really love to know how you're helping these students achieve such success.
Well, first of all, I want to say, well, thank you for that. And, most of my students are in Asia and have gotten positions in Korea, some in China, even in Vietnam, in Malaysia, even right now, Auntie, I helped him get that job. My role model is Alan Abel. And for the dedication that he showed, for example, there's a story about when, for example, his students, Angie Zader and Chris Davini, when they won positions in the Philly Orchestra, he would show up to rehearsals every day and sit in the audience for months, just to make sure he kept giving them input as to what he thought, would help them to get tenure, for example. Being a teacher is something that I really enjoy, but I also find that it's a huge responsibility. And for me, I want to help students get jobs. And that takes a lot of effort in not only the students, but also the teacher to be really dedicated to go. Mr. Abe used to call it the lifetime insurance policy. Once you graduated, it wasn't over. People would go and take touch up lessons with him right before auditions all the time. And, of course, he would teach so many students for free. And just his goal was to make sure that they were able to do this for a career. And so that's my role model. And that's something that I'm always trying to do. And it's not easy because honestly, the numbers, if you look at the statistics, the number of students, and I teach basically in college. Right now I'm at Seoul National University. The percentage that actually end up getting jobs, it's not a majority of them. But trying to find ways to encourage them to find a place in music, even if they don't win an orchestral job, that's part of it. I think the main thing is having a passion and just caring about it. A lot of people have different philosophies on how to teach, but, and some of my students may even say, maybe I may be a little overbearing at times because I really want them to do it or to do well. And I think it's just caring.
Yeah. For those of you who haven't seen it, you should check out all 7 of Ed's classes with us on the Percussion Conservatory. There's just a wealth of information. It's like, I don't know, 9 hours, I think, or something of just pure, like, nonstop learning with Ed. And you can get a taste of that right here on our YouTube channel. We have, him playing bass drum excerpts and mallet excerpts and snare drum excerpts and cymbal excerpts. And some of his videos are our very best performing videos that we've ever had on the platform. For me, I think great teachers, yourself included, have 2 really important things. One is just that they can do the thing, because there are many students, I know myself included, in order for me to feel, when I was young, especially like 16 to kind of 20, in that area, I really needed to see the example. I needed to see and feel and hear the example to be like, man, I can't do that, and I want to be able to do what you're doing right now. And when I saw that example, I was just phew, immediately it was just a much faster knowledge transfer for me. Some of because of the trust, and some of it because the things that I could hear, I could just play much faster. And then as you get older, as a student, you realize like teachers are just human beings and we all have different strengths, and no one's going to be able to play everything for you. Right. So there's this second layer of teaching that's also sort of the second layer of the student, of the understanding that the relationship is really one much more of mentorship than it is of just raw ability. And that is where, Ed, I think you just have such a skill and a talent, and it's what you described, caring. It's just that I've never seen someone with higher empathy in the industry than you. I really haven't, and I know just amazing, wonderful people who I would say have 99% of the empathy that you do. I mean, but really, guys, if you ever have a chance to work with or to meet Ed or to go shake his hand, I think you'll just immediately feel this and you'll sense it. And for me personally, that this experience came when I had no reason. I had never studied with you. We were just people who had kind of met each other in passing, almost a one time thing. Ed came to sub in Malaysian Philharmonic while I was there, and the amount of energy that and time and guidance that he gave me going through a really, really difficult career change was as if I had built him a house and he was trying to pay me back for like all the things I had done for him. It was like I still to this day feel like I'll never be able to repay all of the ways that you have helped me in my career, Ed, but I'm trying. I have days left, so I have days to keep helping you promote stuff and to keep singing your praises, and whatever you need, Ed, let me know. But for me, that's I think that's a really special thing that teachers can take to the second level is the empathy factor, is really understanding the individual student needs, that every student is completely different. I've really truly just never seen someone who can figure out a person, learn what they need in that moment, give it to them, and then like remember it on like with a memory lock, and still like, hey, how you doing 2 years later, and as if the conversation happened 5 minutes ago. So that only comes from people with a really special heart. So Ed, that's your secret for me, at least. That's your secret. But if you want to add anything else to other tips and tricks for aspiring teachers out there who are trying to help their students become successful.
I mean, I appreciate you saying that. And, it's interesting because I still remember first meeting you, but I already seen you posting videos on Facebook.
Mm.
I'm a voracious social media, whatever, YouTube consumer, and part of it might be being isolated, being out here in Asia.
Mm.
I follow things happening back home, whether it's the drum corps stuff online or orchestral stuff. It's like sports to me. And I remember thinking, man, you have a really good talent for this. And I remember saying that to you. I was like, you should do something with this. And I mean, look at you. It's exploded. The what you've done with the percussion conservatory just blows my mind. And it was beyond, what I thought was even possible. And it's amazing to me. And I think we even may have even talked about, if I recall, I remember saying once, I thought, man, I wish somebody would create an app where you could have play long tracks. Am I imagining that? I'm not sure, but I
Ed,
mean,
no, it wasn't your idea, Ed. Shush, shush. Hold on. It was
no, no,
my
no, no,
idea, right? It was my idea, right, everybody? Right, everybody?
no, no. But I'm just saying, it's like, wow. I mean, when I was a student, if I would have had all these resources, I mean, my God. And I think that's part of it. For me, I like doing this because I think about, when I was a student, I wish somebody had told me, or wish I had this information. And going back to some other things that maybe might be quote unquote teaching secrets, Mr. Abel had a really good analytical mind, and I had that through drum corps. Even though I couldn't play marimba, I knew that I could figure it out because I'd learned how to play a snare drum in DCI, which the technical demands are so high just from whether it's a visual aspect of being able to figure out the stroke types and if it was happening or not. I think you have to have a good analytical mind, and you also have to have some kind of hyper awareness for details. And
Mhm.
that I got through training in drum corps and also through Mr. Abel.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I got a small taste of this in Texas high school drumline, which is very intense.
Right.
And my school was very intense, one of the intense Texas high school programs. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. But I mean, Blue Devils, that's a whole nother ball game, man. It really goes beyond. And then, as you're saying, also, teaching there as well. That's a whole nother level beyond helping others. But we got a few more questions, so I want to make sure we keep moving here. And I love this question. We ask some version of this question almost everyone who comes on, because the challenges are just so different for everyone. It seems like a cookie cutter question, but then it just goes in so many places. So I'm very curious, what are the main challenges you have faced along your journey as a musician or as a person, and how they've influenced your perspective as a musician or person?
You know, one thing that I like to talk about sometimes with people, with students even, being in an orchestra, it's like being married, only you don't get divorced. Well, you could leave the orchestra, but then you'll be jobless. And you have all these different people with all these different personalities. And what you learn is, well, one thing that I think about is it's hard for people to change. There's the saying that, our personalities are formed by the time we're 6, and everything sort of plays out from there. And so, as a parent, it's like, oh wow, am I bringing my daughter up right so that she'll be able to succeed later? What I found in being in an orchestra, which is like being on a sports team, for example, personalities are not always going to align with each other. So for me, learning to accept that and to sort of try to find the best in other people and letting them either shine or do their own thing. It took me a while, and that was not taught. See, so other things I learned from my teachers were, how to play something or how to do something, prepare for an orchestral piece. Dealing with people, that to me is something that I had to learn along the way, especially being a principal, and finding ways to let people be themselves,
Mm.
and you know instead of trying to make them fit into your mold. That was a big lesson for me. That's not, I mean, you sort of learn that in school through just experience. You see people in music school because we're so close and it's so intense. You'll see people and you could tell, okay, this person looks like they're going to succeed and this person looks like they're not. But it's not always the case,
Mm.
the results. But you learn about people and how to interact and how to work together, which is really important lesson.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest thing for me about that, like when you're talking about personalities in the orchestra, is just when you know for a fact that you have reached the conflict, and knowing like how will I take it from there. That's one of the things that has really been tough for me, is when you know that the conflict is there, and you're at, like, you have a few options. It's like you can either like go get drinks with that person and just like smash it out, or you can pretend like it doesn't exist. But like that, as you're saying, it's like a marriage almost. It's like this conflict is just, it can just sit sometimes for a really long time before something might, you can like pull on a thread to unravel it. Do you have any advice for folks who might have a conflict in their orchestra, like what you would do about it or what you wouldn't do about it, for example? I mean, how have you navigated some of these things?
You know, there's no one right answer, but I would say that it's okay to actually have that. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, no marriage is perfect. It doesn't have to be happy all the time. And sometimes having conflict, for example, setting a standard and holding people to that, that's sometimes part of the job. And it may create friction, which you may have to do as part of your job. Or you may have to just let it go and let people be who they are and, sort of work around all that stuff. I don't know if that answers any question, but
No, it's good. It's good.
that's
There's
been my
no
experience.
there's
Yeah.
no right or wrong answer. I mean, it's an interesting thing, because people are people, and that's the whole point. Is like there will never be a one size fits all, one key, unturns every lock sort of answer for that question. So of course the answer has to be somewhat general without knowing the specifics of a situation. I definitely resonate with that idea that it's just sometimes that's just the way it is and it's okay. And it's the skill is learning to know that whatever you're feeling, other people might feel that way about you as well. And they might just be letting you be that way and letting you just do your thing. And I think that that was part of it for me too, like learning to mature into that role where, oh yeah, like I might have a personality conflict with this sort of person, but they might have the exact same thing with me, or someone on the other side of the orchestra who's never talked to me in my life might have that with me, but they're just like, I see them once a day for 5 minutes and it doesn't matter, right? I do think that those sorts of conflicts are often blown out of proportion and it's really not that big of a deal. And if you do your job well and you focus on the job, these things tend to not be nearly as worrisome. They get in an echo chamber in our own head, I think, sometimes. But
Yeah, having that perspective of, well, am I right? And constantly questioning yourself. I think that helps. And it helps to give sympathy to the
hmm.
other party and to try to, bridge gaps. Anyways, we got really touchy feely there.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's do something fun. You've been a repeat faculty artist and a huge contributor to the PC. We've already mentioned a couple times, tons of classes in our archive, lots of free content out on YouTube, and not only just things like this, but a lot of behind the scenes things that people will never know about, but just ideas and guidance and brainstorming and directions that we can take it. And Ed has really been a person that has helped shape the PC into what it looks like right now, into what it looks like today. And so I'm wondering, Ed, after it's been growing and you've seen it turn into what it is now, what's been your favorite part of it so far? And where would you like to see it go from here?
Oh, it's been amazing to see all these different people from all over the world, giving their perspectives. I really thoroughly enjoy that. And, being a perpetual student is so important, and I think so healthy. And so for me, I just get off on hearing all these different great performers and teachers give their insights, and it really has helped change my playing and informed me and kept me inspired. I would love to see perhaps more teachers from Europe now. We've had a bunch in America. I'm curious to hear some because they do things sometimes very differently. And also, I'm a big consumer of podcasts. I like how, you're doing these interviews now, and I like to listen to interviews online, whether it's and I've done some, whether it's the Pete's Percussion podcast or the page. I can't remember the name of the other group. But I don't know if it's possible, but, we have in our own little world, I alluded to the sports world before, where you hear commentary. I'd love to hear those conversations. What happened on that audition, or what happened? Who won? I'm always happy to see when you would showcase the latest winner of whatever audition. They tell their story. Getting more behind the scenes. I don't know if that means in a podcast form. That would be kind of interesting. I don't know if that's possible, but
We've reached out to some folks about it, and the tough thing is that just about everybody wants to go ahead and get tenure first,
right, of
which I think is not a bad idea, right? I mean,
course,
it's smart to sort of just get off social media and get off all the interviews and just focus on this one singular thing is okay, now I'm going to get tenure and secure the mission and get my job. So
yeah,
I think where we're probably going to take it from here to piggyback on that is that when people get tenure, I would like to have them on so they can then talk about what was that audition like and how'd you get tenure? Like, what are the things that you've done? How has the experience been so far? Because I think hopefully then they'll feel a little bit more at ease to speak with liberty and just, be more themselves. They'll feel secure. So I do, because everybody wants to hear that. It's just that people are a little bit scared to share, which is understandable, of course.
sure,
And
sure.
we on the PC, we only want people to advance their career. We only want everyone to have success. So we're never, we don't want to strong arm anyone into giving us give us the details, give us the detail, that sort of thing. So we're trying to be careful, but noted and more to come. A lot more percussion stories to come. We're going to be doing them far more regularly, which is great. So I'd like to wrap up today, Ed, with just what's something most people don't know about you.
Oh, gee. Okay. Well, I'm from Canada, but I also was born in America. So I'm Korean, American, Canadian. I think I went to 8 colleges. Uh,
Whoa, really? Okay, I knew a few, but I didn't know eight. You got to list them all.
well, in undergrad, first I went to SUNY Purchase as a philosophy major, and then UMass Amherst as a psych major, and then University of Western Ontario as an English major. Then I went to the University of Toronto, Northwestern University, and Rutgers. And then in between, I went to Yonsei University to learn Korean and Keio University to learn Japanese. So
Wow.
that's 8, I think. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
I
just
was a
phenomenal.
professional student, and back then, I was happy to just go to school forever. But by the time I got to the end of my music school, I was so in debt I had to get a job.
And remind everyone, because I know this, what is your highest level of education that you got?
I finished the DMA finally at Rutgers.
So why don't you force everyone? You've got to make everyone call you Dr. Choi. I like. I think that that's such an awesome name, like Dr. Choi. You know, like the doctor of music. You're just too humble. You're. Everyone's always calling you Ed, but everyone should be calling you Dr. Choi. That's what you earned. You went to 8 schools. You gotta wear the title proudly, right?
Yeah, no,
Uh,
I enjoyed being a student.
I love it. I love it. Well, Ed, thank you so much for this awesome interview. We really, really appreciate all of your gifts and how you share them with us. We appreciate the value that you've brought to the community at large, and everyone who has met you is better for it. Everyone who has worked with you has become a better musician because of it. I have no doubt about that. And I just can't wait to see this next chapter of your career unfolding. I know that you're going to be guest playing all over the world and lecturing and master classing and doing all sorts of stuff, and still lots of years of playing ahead. And it's a really, really exciting and cool time for you. And I'm also very, very happy, just as we touched on earlier, to be having a friend to share all my new fatherhood experiences with. I'm sure we'll have lots to chat about. So thank you so much. And I'd like to give you the final opportunity, just if there's anything you would like to say to the percussion community, or any words of wisdom, or anything at all.
I mean, right back at you, Josh. You've been such an inspiration and continue to be. So thank you from myself and everybody, for your dedication to the platform. It's just amazing. I do want to plug, you mentioned earlier that we have a timpani audition coming up. We have a principal timpani audition at the end of March. It's coming up quickly. Our applications are open until next week on the 23rd. There is no tape. It's just going to be a resume round, and we're basically trying to let as many people in as possible. Our new music director starting this year is Yap Van Zweden, who's still with the New York Philharmonic and Hong Kong Phil, and he is amazing. I mentioned Jung as a huge influence on me. I am pleased to announce that Yap Van Zweden is our next director for 5 years, and he is so amazing. His pursuit of excellence is unmatched, and the orchestra has never sounded better, and we are so excited. And so I encourage anybody who might be interested to reach out to me, and I can talk to you more about our upcoming position. And it's going to be a wild, fun ride. So please join us.
Amazing. Well, congratulations in advance on hosting that audition, and I'm sure it will go smoothly, and you'll have a lot of. It'll be stiff competition. It's an incredible job. Seoul is a city that I love deeply, deeply, deeply. If nothing else, take that job just to eat to your heart's
Mm.
content for the rest of your life, and steak tartare and all the eel, and just, oh my gosh, just everything is so good. The food in Korea is so good. The coffee and the sandwich shops and the bakeries, and it's just and the culture, it really is just exploding on the international scene right now, and has been for some time actually. But yeah, it's a really, really fantastic job. And I had already mentioned to Ed, like, if my wife wasn't about to give birth to our baby boy, I would definitely be there myself. But I want to be around to
Of
see our
course.
baby be born. So, guys, good luck to all the applicants who are coming to the audition. And Ed, thank you once again so much for sharing your percussion story with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Guys, we'll see you for the next one. Thanks so much, Ed.